How do you know what is a reasonable amount of alimony to offer in your divorce? In Georgia, it's tricky because we don't have an alimony calculator. Some states have rules like if you've been married 10 years, you qualify for alimony, and then here's exactly how it's calculated. But in Georgia, it's completely up to the judge, and there is a list of statutory factors that can be considered. But what this means is results are going to vary by the judge that you get. So really you're looking at what is the range of reasonable within negotiations. So here are my tips on how to figure out what is that reasonable range. First, alimony is intended for a long-term marriage, typically where there's a person who has made career sacrifices to take care of the home and support the other person. So as a general guideline, we're typically looking at someone who has been married for about 10 years, has stayed at home, and makes significantly less than the other spouse. So what's a reasonable alimony amount per month? This is based on the needs of the dependent spouse and the ability of the other spouse to pay. And I'll tell you right now, need almost always exceeds the ability of the other person to pay. What you want to do is run 2 post-divorce budgets, 1 for each party. If the dependent spouse is not working, they really need to try to find a job to know what their income is going to be. But in this exercise, if they're not working, then estimate what you believe they will make when they go back to work full-time. And judges do almost always expect the dependent spouse to go to work full-time. Then you also calculate child support. Then you take a look at the dependent spouse's expenses and you subtract out child support and then also the amount they are likely to receive for income. Then you're left with a number that is how short they are each month in covering their expenses. This is the dependent spouse's need. But then you have to look at the ability of the other spouse to pay. So you look at their income and expenses and see how much they have left over each month. Then the range of reasonable is going to be somewhere in between the dependent spouse's need and the other spouse's ability to pay. Usually to make it work, both parties are going to have to go through their expenses and figure out where they're able to cut back. So once you determine the monthly amount, how long should it last? In Georgia, alimony is considered rehabilitative, so lifetime alimony awards really don't happen anymore. So payments typically happen for a few years while that person gets back on their feet. A very general rule of thumb is 1/4 to 1/3 the length of the marriage. However, if you're nearing retirement age, it very frequently goes until the dependent spouse can start receiving Social Security. A judge is not going to expect someone who's 60 years old to work until they're 75.